I don't know if you know this, but wrestling is not easy. Most people would turn and run in the opposite direction if they were ever asked to bench press somebody above their heads or do a springboard 450 splash, but even the most basic moves that are routinely executed can go horribly wrong. Don't believe me? Just ask these guys. I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestlers who got injured from very simple moves. Join us. Number 10, Sid Vicious, second rope kick. Instead of starting off with something light, we are beginning with one of the most gruesome injuries in wrestling history. You're welcome. At WCW's Sin pay-per-view, the third to last major show in the promotion's history, Sid Vicious was competing in a fatal four-way match for the World Championship. At one point, he went up to the second rope to try and execute a jumping kick before things went horribly wrong. The story goes that Sid had been pressured by the top brass to add a flying move to his arsenal, despite him being the size of a small building. Not used to leaving his feet, let alone climbing the ropes, the upshot was that Sid's left leg pretty much snapped in two upon impact. Seriously, if you haven't seen the full clip, then consider yourself lucky. It is grim. Sid broke his tibia and fibula, and his foot was bent completely out of shape. To make matters worse, the match carried on around him. The other wrestlers just kept on working, while Sid lay there in unimaginable pain. Adding insult to literal injury, the master and ruler of the world was the one who took the bloody pinfall. Maybe this company did deserve to go out of business. Number 9, Edge leapfrog. Adam Copeland's injury woes are well documented, with the WWE Hall of Famer's career thought to be over due to his long history of neck issues. As well as a broken neck, the rated R superstar has also had to deal with torn pecs, a torn groin, and torn triceps, as well as many other bumps and bruises. One of the most difficult injuries of Edge's career came in 2009 when he tore his Achilles tendon. Squaring off with Jeff Hardy at a non-televised house show on July 3rd, Edge attempted to leapfrog his on-rushing opponent almost immediately after the match started. Crumpling to the canvas, it was obvious that the ultimate opportunist was in some serious pain, and doctors and trainers were summoned to the ring. Unable to put any weight on his left ankle, Edge was taken backstage whilst Hardy was declared the match winner by forfeit. Set for a 6-month layoff, Edge was forced to vacate the tag team title he held with Chris Jericho. He would return to action in the 2010 Royal Rumble, which he won, but Copeland never attempted a leapfrog again. That last part is probably almost certainly not true, but it sounded dramatic. Number 8, Triple H running clothesline. The May 21st, 2001 episode of Monday Night Raw ended with one of the best matches in the show's history. Tag team champions Steve Austin and Triple H put their belts on the line against the two Chris's, Jericho and Benoit, and they absolutely tore the house down. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only thing that got torn. With Austin trapped in the walls of Jericho, his partner ran in to break up the hold with a clothesline/clubbing forearm. While sprinting towards Y2J, Triple H somehow managed to tear his left quadricep completely off the bone. And yet, because Triple H is mental, he carried on. Hunter's injury is partly why this match is so famous, but such a simple move cost him the rest of the year. He wouldn't return until early 2002, even though WWE put him on the poster for Vengeance 2001, but let's not get into that right now. The game would suffer the same injury 6 years later, only this time Chris Jericho had nothing to do with it. Or did he? No, he didn't. Number 7, Rob Van Dam baseball slide. In the year 2000, ECW needed cash. Well, they always needed cash, but their finances were especially bad at this point. Paul Heyman had the idea of booking his world champion Mike Awesome in a match against his television champion Rob Van Dam, who was by far and away the most popular name on the roster. This would hopefully generate the moolah needed to keep the company afloat, but the man upstairs clearly wasn't a fan of hardcore wrestling. On January 29th, whilst facing Rhino at a house show, RVD went to perform a baseball slide, which involves dropping down and sliding under the bottom rope. Unfortunately, he mistimed the move and landed so badly on his ankle that he broke it. It's somewhat amazing that, considering the plethora of high-risk offense the whole flipping show had in his arsenal, that this is what did him in. He finished the match and retained his title, but was later forced to relinquish the gold and step away from the ring for 4 months. By the time he got back, Awesome had left for WCW, and the chances of their big match had gone up in smoke, which I'm sure Mr. Dam loved, the dirty pothead. Number 6, Cash Wheeler getting knocked off the top top rope. The reason why wrestling commentators call moves off the top rope high risk is because in kayfabe, if a wrestler fails to nail their opponent with a flying attack, they could injure themselves in the process. In reality, even a successful top rope move can be very painful, but FTR's Cash Wheeler didn't even get to hit one and still suffered a nasty boo-boo. On the July 28, 2021 Dynamite, Wheeler and his partner Dax Harwood were wrestling Santana and Ortiz when the former Dash Wilder climbed to the top of one of the turnbuckles. Santana shoved his opponent off so that he landed on the apron, a pretty simple and safe spot most of the time. This time though, Wheeler's arm got caught on one of the turnbuckle hooks, which caused a nasty gash. The former tag team champion didn't require hospital treatment, but did speak about struggling to grip and feel things after the accident. Cash took some time off before returning to the ring for a grudge match against Proud and Powerful, which I'm happy to say he completed without getting strung up like meat in a butcher shop's window. Number 5, Enzo Amore, Irish Whip. It's very rare to see WWE matches get stopped due to injury, especially on pay-per-view, but this is exactly what happened at Payback 2016. Enzo Amore and Big Cass squared off against fellow NXT call-ups the Vaudevillains in the opening match. This was a chance for both teams to prove their worth on a big stage, but sadly their night would come to a premature end. Simon Gotch launched Enzo into the ropes with a bog-standard Irish Whip, which was supposed to send him sliding out of the ring. However, he hit his head on the middle rope, which sent it bouncing backwards and into the mat. The Skywalker smack talker then slumped to the ground before the referee decided he could not continue. The match was thrown out after just 4 minutes, and it was later revealed that Amore had suffered a concussion. This was a scary thing to watch live on pay-per-view, but luckily the leopard print-loving catchphrase machine healed up and made his return a few weeks later. As for Gotch, I'm sure he had some thoughts about his luckless opponent that night. If only there were a YouTube video where I could hear them. Number 4, William Regal, Body Slam. Body slams are the wrestling equivalent of bread and butter. Simple, commonplace, and delicious with boiled eggs. I think the metaphor might have gotten away from me there. Body slams are also very easy to take, providing you know what you're doing. But even veterans of the business have been caught out by this staple of the wrestling world. At No Way Out 2003, William Regal and Lance Storm were defending their World Tag Team Championships against Rob Van Dam and Kane. Early in the match, the Big Red Machine picked up the Englishman for a routine body slam, but the back of Regal's head hit the mat first, which knocked him for 6. Hopefully his lordship enjoyed that cricket reference there. The Blackpool native has since described that this incident gave him an out-of-body experience, and you can tell by watching this match back that he is not fully there after taking the slam. Regal did keep working the bout even though he was visibly wobbly. This would be his last wrestling match for over a year as he took time away to deal with various medical issues, including a heart problem. Number 3, Bret Hart, Thrust Kick. One of the longest running feuds in wrestling today is between Bret Hart and Bill Goldberg, and it's as real as it gets. The animosity between these two stems back to their time in WCW, specifically the main event of Starrcade 1999. Hart was defending his WCW championship against the former NFL player in a bout that would end with a stupid reproduction of the Montreal Screwjob. If that wasn't bad enough, it also featured the spot that would lead to the end of the Hitman's career. Goldberg whipped Hart into the ropes and hit him with his trademark thrust kick. Normally this would have been fine, but Goldberg actually made proper contact with Hart's head, sending him crashing down to the mat and giving him a whopper of a concussion. This knock, plus a bunch of other injuries, eventually led to Bret calling time on his career shortly after this match. He and Goldberg have of course continued to exchange harsh words over the incident, but I'm not going to wade into this particular discussion as I don't want either man to come after me. Plus Bret is clearly in the right, but please don't hurt me, Bill. Number 2, John Cena, Hip Toss. Between 2006 and 2007, John Cena reigned as WWE Champion for 380 days, the longest continuous run with the belt since the days of Hulk Hogan. And you want to know how this historic reign came to an end? The title was vacated on an episode of ECW on Sci-Fi, of all the places. Cena was wrestling Mr. Kennedy on the October 1st, 2007 episode of Raw, ahead of his upcoming title defense against Randy Orton at No Mercy. Sure enough, the Viper made his presence known, hitting Cena with an RKO on the announce table to close out the show. The very next day, it was announced that Cena had torn his right pectoral muscle. In storyline, the injury was blamed on Orton's attack, but that wasn't the real reason behind it. Cena had actually torn his pec executing a simple hip toss on Kennedy during their match. You can see him favoring his arm throughout the bout after this spot, which he finished despite being in considerable pain. He was supposed to be out for the better part of a year, but since he's John Cena, he was back in 4 months. Number 1, Beth Phoenix, a slap. Back in the days when WWE enforced a ban on punches during women's matches, yes, this was a real thing, one of the main offensive maneuvers utilized by the gals was the trusty slap. The cornerstone of all those great lingerie contests and Playboy pillow fights we were treated to in the mid-2000s, the slap has got to be one of the easiest moves of all time to take. You just stand there and let them hit you. How could one of these possibly go wrong? One person who knows the answer to that is Beth Phoenix, who suffered a crazy injury thanks to this simplest of moves. On June 5th, 2006, Phoenix was facing Victoria on an episode of Raw when her opponent smacked her round the chops. According to the Hall of Famer, she had her mouth slightly open when she took the move, which somehow led to the slap completely shattering her jaw. The Glamazon required plastic surgery to fix her busted mandible and wouldn't wrestle again for 2 months. The moral of the story here is that even the most basic of wrestling moves can go wrong, and that you should never mess with Victoria.